Hey everybody, welcome back to the Underwater Photography Show. As always, I am Matthew Sullivan.
And I'm Alex Mustard.
And we have a gear-heavy episode for you today. Alex has just returned from the Red Sea, where he did over 50 dives in 2 weeks. And he spent a lot of that time testing and reviewing the new Backscatter HF-1, or Hybrid Flash 1. So we're going to talk about that today, from everything from the power, first impressions, ergonomics, light quality, all that good stuff. So Alex, how were your first impressions of the Backscatter strobe?
Well, here's the flash, and this is, I know, is one of our most hotly anticipated episodes. I've had so many emails and messages asking, what I thought about the flash. Did I like it? Because I think although Backscatter have released a great deal of information about it, everyone is well aware that it's, Backscatter are sort of, commissioned and are selling this product, and they're not going to say anything bad about it. So people are kind of like, well, Backscatter have been saying great things, but, we kind of know that they're going to say great things whether it's great or not. People have been asking me about it every time I've posted a picture taken with it. So, this is a hotly anticipated episode. And in terms of first impressions, they're very, very good, I have to say. The flash gun, it's quite a big beast. It's a big, powerful, wide-angle flash gun in reality. I think, Backscatter make the mini flash, and I feel that, their proposed usage is likely to be use your mini flashes for your macro and use this for your wide angle. So it's kind of very much, this is not trying to be a macro strobe, it's very much trying to be a wide angle strobe. You can see from the design, it has a familiar kind of CNC kind of feel in terms of the layout. It's kind of very CNC D1, D2, D3. It's kind of like a little bit like a CNC D4 maybe in terms of philosophy, in terms of just the layout and the look of it. One annoyance I actually found with it is that the Allen key that holds the mounting ball on is an Imperial Allen key for some reason, which no one has, because although this is made in China where they don't use Imperial measurements, they've obviously put an Imperial Allen key in here. And when you're on a liverboard, trying to find an Imperial Allen key when everyone's got metric sets of Nauticam Allen keys is quite hard work. So in terms of those all-important first impressions, this flash gun for me makes two big first impressions. The first is that it's a very likable thing to use. It really is. It's a very easy to like flash gun. And really, one of the main reasons that makes you like it is, boy, is it powerful. It kicks out. It's got two flash tubes on the front. Sorry, it's got a bit of tape on this. I'm giving away one of my technical trade secrets there. When we do the backlit photos of the motorbikes on the Thistleborn, one of the first things you do is you take the diffusers off to get a very hard light. And I actually put a piece of tape down the middle of the piece of just electrical tape down the middle of the flash gun, because that helps to split the beam further. So you get that really split beam effect. And there's just still a bit of tape glue on there, which I hadn't noticed. So I better give them a clean before they go back to Backscatter. I'll put this back on in case they're watching. They're a very likable strobe, but boy, do they have a lot of power. They really kick out a big chunk of light, and that really makes them a lot of fun to use because you can really light stuff up. Anything you fancy lighting up, you can kind of light up with these guys. And I'd say those are the two big first impressions. I'd also say that for me, that power becomes very addictive. And I often say when people try different flash guns, the first dive they use with those flash guns, they're like, wow, these are amazing. By dive 2 or 3, they've kind of got used to them. They're just like, oh yeah, they're nice, but they're kind of like my old flash guns. And then when you give people back, you say, right, can I have them back now? And they go back to their old flash guns. They then come back to you and go, oh my God, I'd forgotten how weak these are compared to those. So they kick out a lot of power. And when you've got that power, it allows you to do interesting things. So although they're pretty big, and in the water they're pretty heavy, because they are quite tightly packaged. They are enjoyable to use. And I did 50 dives in the Red Sea, and I probably did about 20 of those with these. And I wouldn't have done as many dives as that if I felt it was in any way restricting my photography. I enjoyed using them, and I use them a lot over quite a wide range of subjects. Very, very enjoyable.
How do they handle and feel in the water? Like the ergonomics on them? Because the mini flash is not my favorite ergonomically. So I wonder how the hybrid flash does.
So I would say that it was obviously tropical diving. I wasn't wearing gloves or anything like that. Um, I would say ergonomically. So I've got a nice video. I've just got. I didn't record any video of me shooting with them, but on one of the dives, one of my friends, Jenny Stock, wanted to pose for some pictures during the dive, and agreed to model for me. And Jenny is an amazing underwater photographer. I think she's been the overall winner of Ocean Art. She's certainly won categories in Ocean Art many times. She's also she was this year's and the first female winner of the British Underwater Photographer of the Year title. So it's quite cool to have like a really good photographer wanting to model for you. I would say that Jenny's a much more experienced photographer than she is underwater model, but she really enjoys doing it. And I always really enjoy doing the dives, taking pictures of her, which is a lot of fun. In order to sort of give her something to do with her hands, I gave her my GoPro. So she did film this bit of footage of us taking pictures on the Carnatic wreck. She was supposed to be modeling at the time, so the footage isn't, up to her normal standards. But it gives you an impression of using them underwater. As flash guns, I think that they were nice and easy to use underwater. I would say that my only issue ergonomically really is with the switches at the back. They've got two switches on the back. I like that they've made one of them a round dial and one of them a clicky switch, because that way when you feel with your hands, you know which one you're on. Yeah. For me, though, I think they made them the wrong way round, because the clicky switch, the nice, easy one to use, is the main on-off switch, which you typically use once before you go in the water and then don't change it again. Whereas the other dial is the power dial. And the problem with a circular switch is that even when you know the flash guns well, you can't tell what setting you're on. So you have to constantly look at not constantly, but every time you want to change flash power, you have to look at the back of the flash, read the little numbers to make sure that you've got your two flash guns on the same power. And for me, that's a slight frustration. I wish they'd done those switches the other way around, because that way the easy to handle one, which is the flat paddle, which you can do even with cold fingers and gloves, it would be easy to use. That said, I don't really think you're going to do a lot of cold water diving with these. They're just, you don't need this level of power on a cold water dive. You'd be carrying around a lot of weight. And then the other feature that these flash guns have is they have a video light built into them. And when you hit this button here, you can turn that on. And that's very easy to use. It's got a few power settings that you just toggle around, and they work pretty nicely.
So the video light runs, it's not controlled by either dial, it's just that button in the back?
Yeah, so it's kind of got a separate control system, which is just a single push button, full power, half power, quarter power. Yeah. But in all honesty, they could have just given it one power, because it's not the most powerful video light in the world. And I was in the Red Sea, and the Red Sea is always sunny, and it's bright, shallow tropical reefs, and that video light didn't do very much out in the Red Sea. But it did, inside the wrecks, do a really good job. My only frustration with the video light is that it's a very different color temperature to the flash tube. So if you put a diffuser on to make the flash tube a nice color temperature, it's the wrong diffuser for your video light. So it's not a big deal, but it just means that you've got a really nice color temperature for stills, and then you turn the video light on and it's completely the wrong color temperature. So you either have to take the diffuser off or re-white balance or white balance in post or that sort of thing. So
speaking of diffusers, I know they make a bunch of them. So what ones did you actually find useful? What ones could you see yourself using? And how did they affect, like you said, color, temperature, light quality, all that kind of stuff?
So I think it's good that Backscatter have made a lot of diffusers. Obviously, it's probably good for them because they're hoping a lot of customers will just buy all the accessories in case they need them one day. I don't think Backscatter are going to be heavy on selling everyone every accessory. And I think their view is that they make all these different diffusers to give you options as a photographer. Yeah. I tried a few of them and very quickly realized that my favorite diffuser was a flat diffuser, because it gave a pretty good wide coverage. You see from the photos, using the flat diffuser, I was generally able to cover fisheye shots pretty nicely. And I always use the warmest one, which they have as a 4500 Kelvin diffuser. And I was shooting that on a fixed white balance on my Sony camera of 4700 Kelvin, and that gave a pretty nice light. So I don't know if it's exactly 45. That's exactly the same white balance that I use with my retros, actually. So with their strongest diffuser, they ended up the same as I shoot my retros, which is why I was kind of very, very happy with that. When I use the dome version diffuser of that, however, I found the domed version of the diffuser. See how strong a diffuser it is?
Yeah.
The color, it's like properly yellow, and that's because these strobes do produce a very blue, cold light compared to some other strobes. I did a photo of the motorbike on the Thistlegorm where I had these as the backlight on the motorbike, and I put some front fill in using my retro strobes. And if I white balance on the front fill, which is from the retro strobes, you can see how blue these are in that picture by how blue the backlight is. But I have to say that the flat diffuser, which is this color, that's the 4500 one, actually corrects it to me to a very well judged white balance. And I was very happy with the color temperature of the light once I added that diffuser. But it is a strong color shifting diffuser, as you can see here against my white t-shirt. When I did use that same rated dome diffuser, I found the dome diffuser warmed the light more than the flat diffuser. So I found this a bit strong on the dome diffuser, but the same plastic on a flat diffuser was fine. And I think that's probably because this is maybe slightly thicker or something like that. I don't know.
Did you find any uses for that dome diffuser, or would you not bother with it? Like, could you see it for sharks or something like that, or something really reflective?
No, or maybe. I mean, it's good for people to have the options, but shooting reef shots in the Red Sea, I was very happy with the quality of light from these. It's not as nice a quality of light as the very nicest circular flash tubes with the reflector. And actually, on the workshop, I was showing some of the guests, shots that I'd done of exactly the same scene with the two different strobes, and people were like, "Oh yeah, if you point it out to me, I can see the difference." But it's not, you've got to be kind of into these things to really get over it. I found the dome diffuser just killed the light penetration. When you shot with the dome diffuser, you'd get a very softly lit foreground, and then the light would just die, and it'd almost go straight into silhouette behind it. The light would fall off very quickly. With the flat diffuser, I thought the light was really, really nice. Not the best out there, but the combination of the power and the nice color temperature of the light, it wasn't a big loss. I was also concerned that using such a strong warming diffuser, that's it compared to the white one. You can see how big a difference it is. Pushing the light so far would maybe impact a bit on the color fidelity. You're taking a light source and really squeezing it in one direction. But I thought the colors of my shots, you can judge for yourselves, I'll throw them in the video as we're talking. I thought the colors of the reef scenes were really nice. I don't have an issue with the colors of the reef scenes. So my feeling was that actually the light output was pretty nice. And I think if you're upgrading to this from any Japanese strobe, it's going to blow your socks off, because the power, particularly if you use that warm diffuser, it's a very, very nice, nice product. Is it the best out there? Probably not quite, but it's such a big upgrade over those strobes that it's definitely going to make a lot of underwater photographers very happy.
Yeah.
And especially if they're doing a bigger animal trip and they're struggling to get light on stuff, they're not going to struggle too much with these.
One question I have, does the white diffuser have the same power killing ability as the colorful diffuser? Are they the same thickness?
I think so. I mean, you mean the dome ones or the flat ones?
Yeah, the dome ones, yeah.
I didn't try the dome white one because I was in the Red Sea, the light's cold. I didn't use the white ones at all. Okay. I did one test shot on land, saw how cold the light was, and immediately reached for the warmest diffusers. And their warmest diffuser was the one to use. And basically, if I was buying these and I was a tropical diver and I was buying these for wide angle in the tropics, I would just buy the flat warmest diffuser. The 45, they're in the box here. I'll grab it out because, whoops, no, I'm going to just pull the box on the floor now, which is that one. The 4500 Kelvin, this is the one I used all the time. And that gave a really good color, really nice look. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't bother with any other accessories, certainly not early on with them. If you find that that's, you want to have a bit more options, maybe invest in some of the others. But that one was doing the job for me.
Yeah. We should mention that even though they have the mini flash and they probably anticipate most people using that for macro, I do believe they have a snoot coming for the hybrid flash one. So if you just wanted to use that as your all-around strobe for wide angle and macro, I think they do have one coming, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty big with a snoot on it.
Would be big.
And it's like, stop shooting everything with snoots, everyone. My goodness, we're fed up with the shots. I did do some fish photography with it. The Red Sea's not great for macro critters, but it's very good for fish photography. The weight of these out in front of the housing when doing fish portraits, they are a bit heavy in the water. I did have to add buoyancy. I actually added a buoyancy collar to my housing when using these, and that made it a lot better. But they are a bit heavy. Maybe Backscatter in the future could do something like the Kraken Flash has and have some sort of buoyancy attachment on it just to make them neutral. For wide angle, it didn't bother me too much, but with macro, it probably would. It did. That said, because they do kick out a heck of a lot of power, I did on a couple of occasions find them quite hot after the dive. But I don't know, because when you're on a liverboard, you bring your camera back up. You don't necessarily get your camera instantly you've got out the water. And obviously, if you've done a safety stop at the end of the dive, you've maybe had 5 minutes since you last took a picture. But often in the Red Sea, you come right up to the surface and you're still shooting because the reefs come right to the surface. And so there was a couple of times when they were quite warm, or really quite warm after a dive. And I don't know whether that was because they were left in the sun by the boat crew for a few minutes. You're on a boat, it's always moving. You think your camera's in the shade, and then the captain changes course, and then, a patch of, desert sun goes on your housing and cooks your strobe a bit. So I'm not sure about what was causing that, but that might also risk, if they do need a good amount of cooling from the water, maybe that would limit how much buoyancy you could add to them. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the reliability.
Yep.
You won't hear it in the official Backscatter sources, but the Mini Flash 1, I know people did have issues with them, and Backscatter were generally very good at just replacing them when people had problems with them. But I know outside of the States, in the UK, a lot of people bought Mini Flash 1s and didn't have a great experience with them. Not in terms of the products, in terms of the reliability. These didn't miss a beat or trip. It was only one trip. It was only 20 dives. But I took a lot of photos, and I took a lot of photos with them, pushing them hard on high power. We used them twice as remote strobes with the whole group, shooting them high power, doing backlit motorbike shots for the, I set them up for the group, and then everyone came in and shot with them. And so, and they stood up to all that abuse very nicely. So for me, they proved themselves very reliable. I know it's only one trip. You tend to learn about if a product is reliable or not over time. But to me, they seemed to be very reliable.
How was battery life?
Well, yeah, and that is kind of one of the key differentiators, I guess. So these are powered by lithium cells. When you remove the battery cap at the back, in the back there's space to slide 2 of the standard lithium cells. I'm never very good on what these cells are, but I can grab one out of here. These are the ones that Backscatter use and recommend. This is the size of this is the NL2153, which I think is the right code. But they need to be the high power ones. I think at least 15 amp. And there's a lot of dodgy ones around. I would say if you're buying these flash guns, don't try and skimp on batteries. Yeah. Buy good batteries from a good retailer, both for performance and for safety. Obviously, lithium batteries, have issues in that regard. With a set of these fully charged, I think they pretty much would always take a full day of shooting, no bother. And as you know, and as we've discussed on here, I shoot a lot more than most people. So if they can take a day of my shooting and, being used as remote strobes, they're going to take a day of anyone shooting very easily.
It'll take a week of my shooting.
Yeah, I really think a lot of photographers will be like, yeah, I use them a week. I did find on one day I recharged them in the middle of the day because they were showing that they dropped down a bit on the color battery sensor thing after some very heavy use. And I was planning later that day to use them as remote strobes as well. So they were going to get a real beating again. And that actually then led me for the rest of the trip. So I took with me one of those fire-safe lithium bags. It's down the back there, but I've got a picture of them. And actually what I did is I kept the chargers for these inside the bag. So on the liverboard, the cables came out the wall into this fireproof bag, and I was charging them. So I think you do need to, if you're choosing to take lots of lithium batteries, particularly this type of lithium battery, not the camera ones which are housed and have got various more complicated stuff inside them to protect them. You need to take responsibility for them. The other thing that I was doing is, because they last all day, I would charge them at lunchtime when everyone was awake. You know, normally on liverboard, you do 2 dives in the morning, have a break for an hour and 2 hours or so over lunch. And that was plenty of time to charge these back up. And then I was charging them in the middle of the day. And then at the end of the day, I'd leave them in for the next morning because they could do a whole day. And that way I wasn't charging them at night. And I thought that was a more responsible way to do things and putting them in the fun. Not that I had any issues at all, but I do think, you know, particularly on a liverboard, you know, you owe it to everyone else on board not to be. So, you know, obviously I was charging them in an open communal area where there were always people around. And I was also doing my charging during the day, making use of the fact that they could last the whole day. Yep. The only issue I had with the batteries was getting them there. Each of these strobes takes 2 batteries. And it says on the back of the strobes, only use approved batteries. Sorry, and it says never travel with batteries installed on the back of the strobe. So you have to carry these batteries loose. And that means 2 batteries per strobe. So 4 in total without any spares. Unfortunately, the airline that I was flying to, all airlines have restrictions on lithiums, but where they set that restriction is up to them as an airline. And EasyJet, which is a big European carrier who do our flights to the Red Sea, they have a rule that each customer is only allowed to bring 2 loose lithium batteries with them on the trip. And obviously I have 1 that's a spare for my camera. I only take 2 camera batteries, 1 in the camera, 1 spare, but I needed 2 of these for each strobe. So if I had followed EasyJet's rules, I would have been breaking their limits. So actually on the way out, I asked a friend to take them for me. And then on the way back, when it was less critical, I put all 4 in my bag inside the fireproof charging bag, because that's the same bag I use for keeping my lithiums in for the flight. And no one checked and no one said, no one asked me, so I didn't admit it. But I think it's something to be aware of. You know, EasyJet, okay, it's not a big long haul carrier, and if you're not European, you may never have heard of them. But I looked it up, and they take 82 million customers every year. They're not a small airline by any means. You know, that's a big, you know, so they're a major airline. And if they're imposing a restriction like that, it's something to think about if you are planning to travel with these. That said, with the performance, I didn't feel there was any need to take spare batteries, because you could last a day and then charge them up over lunch, or if that's not enough time, you could charge them again in the evening to get them back to full power. I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about with them. I think all I would say as closing remarks is, at the price they currently are, that's a heck of a lot of performance for the price. The product is, I think, very, very enjoyable to use, having lots of power, a good quality of light. I think the pictures speak for themselves in terms of being able to light up big stuff in the brightness of the Red Sea. The video light, for me, certainly for tropical diving, it's a bit ineffective. It's, you know, people dive with great big, you know, Kelvin lights and things like that to light things up in the tropics and still struggle. So a hybrid flash, it's not really doing it. But then you go to Lembe on your next trip and suddenly this is a great video light for macro in a murky, rainy environment. But in the Red Sea, it wasn't. Only inside the wrecks could they do anything.
So who would you say that these strobes are best for? Like what sort of photographer, what sort of diver?
I would say, yeah, tropical, blue water, big animal shooter. Excellent strobes, you know, fast recycling, loads of power. You get that shark pass, dagger, 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 dagger. You know, you can blast them out at high power. I did get the overheating warning on one occasion when there was a school of fish in the current, big school of snappers in the current. It was too strong a current to stay with them. So you had to kind of fight your way upstream, really hard work, and then drift back past them shooting. And it was a big scene, so I had these on high power. And in that situation, they were buzzing after I was shooting each time. And that's because I probably had them turned up to the max and I was hammering it out as fast as I could, because I could only keep my feet going like this for so long to get the shots. There's a lot more to these flash guns that I didn't get into. They have their slave mode, their smart slave mode, where they can communicate with each other and all that, you know, rubbish. I mean, not rubbish, but it just doesn't interest me. They've apparently do high-speed sync with Olympus. They've got, I think they've got a TTL mode. I'm not really sure, and I don't really care, to be honest. For me, I'm not interested. You know, I wasn't taking them to review. I was taking them to, you know, for us to talk about and my interests are using them as a serious photographer would. And
Yeah.
if you're shooting your wide angle with TTL, invest in some time in learning to shoot wide angle without TTL. Your lighting will get much better than buying strobes that do TTL. I'm not too interested. That said, all those fun modes might provide some distractions if you're ever on a boring dive trip. But I was on an exciting dive trip, so I didn't get around to using any of them. But yeah, I have to say I found them really likable, and I think everyone who tried them also really liked them because I lent them around quite a lot on the trips. They were very easy to live with the lithium batteries, and that EasyJet travel restriction is obviously not the same on all airlines. A lot of them go by the specifications of the batteries, but
I think we've probably covered as much as we're going to cover on this flash today. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you have a little bit clearer idea of what the hybrid flash is like. I have not shot them myself, but I'm sure I will at some point. So again, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.